when the world's too dark of a place to be, and you need an escape from reality. Open up those pages and start your fantasy, whatever genre you please. And join a book club, 'cause you won't read it on your own. Join a book club, so you'll be held accountable. It's just a means to an end, but you're doing it with your friends. So join the book club by DLC.
Hello, book clubbers, dancers, groovers, seat boogie downers. It's time to get back into it. I'm Jeff Kanata, and I'm especially pleased to be able to say hi to Lana Bashinsky because she's under the weather and still powering through here with us. Hi, Lana. Thanks for being here.
Hello, good morning. Honestly, I'm thrilled to be here just to have a change of scenery from the couch or the doctor's office. We're doing fine. I'm ready to go, baby. Gonna have a slight bit of maybe like latency on my brain, but I'm happy to talk about the book.
That's okay. Then you'll be down to my speed as normal.
Perfect.
That'll be good for me. I'll be, I'll feel a little better about myself. Thanks for joining us, folks. Today, we are talking about chapters 21 and 22 of Memories of Ice, the third novel in the Tales of the Malazan Book of the Fallen by Steven Erikson. This is the beginning of book 4 of novel 3, which is entitled Memories of Ice. We're doing 2 chapters this week, as I said, prescribed by Emaj and the folks in the Discord over at 5x5 DLC on Discord. 2 chapters this week, 2 chapters next week, and then the big finale with the final chapter and the epilogue. So we're in the home stretch of novel 3, Lana. It feels pretty good.
It feels pretty good, and it feels like it went by so fast. I think that maybe just shows how big chapter 18 was.
Yeah.
Because I felt like we were like, oh, that's basically 50% of the way through the book. But now I'm like looking at the end of the book, and it feels like we're closer than we were. So I'm really excited to see how all this shakes out, especially with some of the things mentioned in this chapter by way of the size of the uphill battles that are to come. But I will save that for a discussion.
Not a lot of fireworks this week in our chapters, but some juicy reveals and lots of lore. We got a lot to get through. But we always start our show with a non-spoiler section. So if you're not caught up with where we are in the novel, you can still hang out and talk with us for the beginning of the show. And Lana, I know you had a topic on your mind to bring up.
I do. I feel like this is something that is a topic that I would have wanted to talk a lot about in high school, but it's something I think about a lot and don't do a lot. Jeff Kanata, have you spent a lot of time in the library? You know, we talk a lot about reading. We've talked about like how we like to read, but have specifically being out there surrounded by the wealth of books offered by the government, I guess. Have you spent a lot of time in the library in your life?
That's a great question. And the answer is yes. Not as much lately as I would like, not as much in my adult years. Although now that I have children, we take them to the library a lot. There's awesome events that they have there, like, book readings and stuff for kids that I love. But I love a library. I love a library. I love the feeling of a library. I love the smell of a library. I love being in a library and a bookstore, like a good bookstore, especially like a community, kind of mom and pop bookstore, which there are fewer and fewer of in our world. But I just did 2 nights ago, I moderated a panel at a bookstore here in Denver called The Tattered Cover. Some friends of mine had just debuted their first book. It's called MCU, The Reign of the Marvel Universe, I believe. I put the cover up already, but it's awesome. They did all this great investigative journalism about how all the Marvel films were made, and they interviewed dozens and dozens of people involved and talked about the entire process of Marvel, becoming the biggest thing in entertainment. Great book, huge, interesting, dense, juicy, lots of cool, never before heard behind the scenes stories. Anyway, I tell you that to say that I was so fortunate to be asked to moderate a panel at the bookstore and got to be in the bookstore I love being in a bookstore. I love being in a library. So yeah, I mean, I haven't spent as much time. When I was little, we used to go to the library all the time. And I used to, it was a treat to go and pick out a book at the library. But I take my kids now. And the cool thing too, I'm very meandering about this topic, but another cool thing is that the library has entered the digital age, right? And you can have the Libby app is so great to be able to sort of use the library on Kindles and other e-readers. So you can still sort of participate in the free availability of books through the library digitally, which I have definitely done numerous times as well.
Yeah,
How about you?
It's amazing. The library resources that are available now, I feel like I think people with kids talk about it a lot, and I only know like a couple of my adult friends who are in that ecosystem. But if you haven't checked out your library's digital resources, I encourage you to. They're amazing. I too love being in a library. I haven't actually been in a library in years and years and years, but nothing felt like a smarter way as like a high school student than being like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to the library today. Why? Oh, I'm going to study there. And it's like, that's the thing that you see all the time. Like it's a place to go. Like that's what it's for. But it just makes you feel like immersed and focused. I think in my, later school years, I ended up being like at a coffee shop because the idea of anybody watching me made me be like accountable, being like, oh, if somebody looks over at me, I don't want them to see me like scrolling Facebook. I want them to see me like doing something cool, studying like a cool kid. But through high school, I took like a college level history class, and in order to complete like our final essay for the history class, we had to have cite like serious resources, and I just picked like a really specific topic, and nothing felt cooler than like being able to think of something that I wanted to research and talk to a librarian and be like, here's the specific topic I want to talk about, and have them show you how to use the computers, how to search like keywords for books, and then look it up in the Dewey Decimal System, and then go find it on a shelf. It gives me like the same satisfaction as like eating sushi in a weird way. There's like a process to it.
Libraries are the sushi of reading. Everybody says that old chestnut.
Common. You know what I mean? You go and there's a process. Like you could just eat the sushi, but you could like have a little ginger. You can get your wasabi. You get your soy sauce. There's like a little process to it, and it feels like an interactive experience. And I just love that. I love that about being in the library, and just cool that you can think of anything you wanted to learn about, and you can just go learn. And
are you? I know that you aren't happy when I bring up your relative age to mine, your youth, your glowing youth. Are you too young to have experienced the card catalog, or did you?
No, I'm not too young to have the experience of the card catalog. I think I'm just in the same age bracket as you. I think literally, if I were 2 years younger, I would not have the experiences you've had. But I made it, baby. I made it.
You made it. You're right in under the
born
wire.
In the 80s. Okay.
You can still relate to old man Kanata over here.
Yeah.
What about the microfiche? Did you ever experience microfiche at the library?
No, I don't know what microfiche is.
That was where they would like scan old newspapers, and they had this weird machine. And you would like scroll through. You had these weird dials. A
machine just for reading old newspapers.
Yeah.
I would never have known the name microfiche, but I have seen and interacted with one of those machines.
Yeah. That was the good old days. The card I still have this sense memory of the tactile feeling of pulling out the little wooden drawers of the card catalog, and those little cards that you could pull out and plop back in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good times.
Stuff.
Good times. The library. Have you ever? It's a shame you said you haven't been in years. So I'm assuming that your years in living in Los Angeles, you never went to the downtown library.
I never went to the downtown library. I barely ever went to LA until I started working in Santa Monica. I think I've been to LA under 10 times.
Well, you're not missing much. But the downtown library is awesome. Awesome. I mean, it is multiple floors. It's just massive. It's huge. It's like what you would imagine, you see in a movie where the the spy has to go to the library and they're
Yeah.
walking. It's just humongous.
Yeah.
And very satisfying in that way of like, they have everything. There's different floors. There's different huge rooms. There's like reading rooms. There's special rooms with old books we have to put on white gloves in order to,
Yeah.
it's got all that stuff, it's not
Yeah.
like your local library that's one big room. It's this
I went to,
huge thing.
In Edmonton, the University of Alberta has, I think, one of the largest libraries in North America. So I've had a big library experience. My only white glove experience was I went to the Getty once for like an exhibit about medieval manuscripts, and they took us into like the back study rooms, and they're like, we're going to show you like the oldest books we have, and they pulled out this book. They're like, this is the last time this book will ever be opened.
What?
And we got to
Wow.
see it and like touch the parchment of the pages, and I was like, do you think that I, random game developer, deserve to be the last person to see this book? I don't think so.
Wow.
But thank you.
Why was it the last time? Because it was
it's too fragile.
Fragile?
Yeah.
Wow. It's not fragile today, but like after today.
Don't even look at it. Don't even look at it. Gluing it shut.
It's the last day anyone gets to look at this book. We're burning it.
Exactly. Yeah, it seems so funny.
Amazing. Yeah. Visit your local library, get a library card if you haven't. One of the things, it's an amazing thing that we as a culture have decided books are valuable enough as an experience that we'll just let you check them out for free. It's amazing. It's, cost is not an impediment to enjoying books. It's wonderful. And all kinds of other things, audiobooks, even video games you can check out from a library. It's wild. Beautiful thing. Okay, great question. But we got work to do because we have two very interesting chapters to get to. So spoilers starting now for chapters 21 and 22 of Memories of Ice. We start chapter 21 with a breakup scene, Lana. It's a breakup scene. It's our boy Perrin and Silver Fox getting into it. Some real hashing it out. It's a real Maury Povich moment. They're arguing. You
don't even know me. I know you all too well.
Yeah.
It was like
I don't even know you anymore. Who are you anymore?
I
still know who you are, and I do not like it.
Now I finally know who you are. You revealed your true colors.
Yes. How do you feel about this? I mean, basically, it starts with Perrin, Silver Fox riding up next to Perrin and saying, "Hey, awkward. I know we're not talking right now, but have you seen my mom?" And he's like, "Oh, I think two of my boys took your mom because you're not taking care of her." And she's like, "How dare you? They kidnapped her." And he says, "They can't kidnap something that nobody else wants."
Yeah.
Just nasty.
Rude. That's rude.
Don't talk about my mom that way. How dare you?
The scene I thought was interesting because I think we already know that like Night Chill has been like the dominant personality for Silver Fox, like how those personalities actually interplay, but her refusal to release the Talan Emas is like the first sort of like, oh, that's selfish and sinister. And then now this, like the way that she talks to Perrin being like, yeah, it's over. This is not a thing. We know it's not a thing, but I still need your words. But then it dips into that, like, it's revealed that she's like, you don't think I haven't been closer to her? I've been closer to her than any of you can possibly know. And now you've only made this a much worse situation for everybody involved.
Yeah, that was the most interesting thing for me is I've sort of felt hints of her actually caring very deeply for her mother and watching over her mother, but to have her explicitly state, I am taking care of her in my own way here, and you've messed it up, and this is going to ruin everything. And sort of these foreshadowing overtones of there's something really horrible that's hunting her, and now she's outside of my protection. You screwed this up. Bad things are going to happen now. I thought was pretty interesting because obviously we've been inside the Maybe's POV and she feels abandoned. we've seen other people who've been like, oh, what's going on with Silverfire? Why isn't she?
I mean, we talked about it last week. We're like, she's 30 feet away. She's not even going to like peek through the curtains to be like, "Sup, Ma, how you doing?" Like, the thing that's like obviously objectively frustrating is like, well, if you were taking care of her, why didn't you just tell one person that?
Yeah.
Why don't you just tell anybody I'm doing it my own way rather than being like, she abandoned me. So like,
Right.
let's say so many sassy, like, you know, she's come into like her woman's body, but it's like there's so many like teenage elements that are like that angsty sort of friction that you feel from the character that it's sort of like, of course, like, you know, she's an independent woman. She doesn't have to explain herself to nobody, but even when you're in an alliance, you kind of do though, so that people could be on the same page as you. And if letting the maybe out of your like dream site was a bad thing, you should have told somebody so people just didn't think you were a piece of garbage.
That's the one thing that we've learned about Erikson's gods is they hate explaining themselves to mortals.
They hate it.
And she's got a little elder god in her. You know, she's got a little elder god in there going like, ugh, I'm not going to waste my time explaining myself to the likes of you.
It will take me longer to explain it than it'll take me to just do it. So it's fine.
Yeah. But ending that scene with, I will not abandon my mother. It's like, oh, interesting, because from her perspective, she's not doing that. From literally everybody else's perspective, she already has, right? So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
The next scene, we're hanging out with Itkovian, our boy, and we get brand new characters introduced.
Ooh.
Brand new, very interesting characters. I don't know if they are sort of a one-time novelty that's going to breeze in and breeze out of our story, or if this is they'll be coming back. But we meet the painter, and let's decide how we're going to pronounce his name. Or Mulligan, or Mulligan, or Mulligan, or Mulligan, or Mulligan.
Or Mulligan sounds nice, but maybe that's just because it sounds like Mulligan, and that's something I recognize.
Or Mulligan,
or Mulligan.
Or Mulligan. I like the liquid U there. Or Mulligan. Or Mulligan hanging out with the toad Gumble. Talking toad.
A literal toad, right?
Literal talking toad. I kept waiting. I don't know if it's a person that's been transformed into a toad. I think this is the first time we've had a talking animal that's not a soul taken. Is it a soul taken toad, you think?
But even the soul taken, they don't talk in their soul taken forms, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, so, it feels like a real departure for the series. All of a sudden, we're like, oh, talking animals now?
And nobody's like, weird. People are like, where's the toad? Like everybody seems to know who this guy is, like as we go through the chapters, which is funny.
Yeah. Fascinating character. Go ahead. Sorry.
I immediately love this character, obviously, which Jeff Bodine, my husband, pointed out to me that is because I love all characters that are kind of like nasty little goblin people.
I thought you were going to say that are artists.
I love all artists. No. But the fact, like, immediately he's like, oh, you haven't heard of like a painter like, or Mulligan, whatever he says. And he goes,
of Lee Hang.
Of Lee Hang? And he's like, no, I haven't really heard of him. He's like, well, I'm that guy.
Yeah.
It's like such a funny little
really funny
twist.
Yeah.
To like, oh, he's like an extreme vanity or extreme confidence in his skills as an artist. But
he's also there's some like magic elements of him because he like nails Itkovian hard. You know, he's like, do you see how I paint him? Where, you know, he's taking on the burden of everybody, and you can see it in his face, and also he's not yet done. It's like, oh, he said his catchphrase. He knows his catchphrase.
Yeah.
You know? I think there's some magical something going on there.
There's something magical going on there. But also I thought it was interesting because I think Itkovian wasn't there for the meeting where everybody's like, we know you're not outcast, right? We know they're not outcast. And so he's like, you were sent here by the Empress. Like, this is their outcast. Why are you part of the Empire painting what they're doing? He's like, what am I going to sit around and paint? Not this. You got to play the streets. I might as well be here. Ugh. He's like, oh, good cover, buddy. You got it.
Yeah. Also, the interesting reveal that Kellenved always had artists. Like, he was like, okay, record everything. And by record everything, I mean make beautiful paintings. That's a funny thing. Just like he embeds painters with the warriors, just like, do what you're doing. Just do what you're doing. He's like
the
he's like the
courthouse
war
drawing,
photographer.
but like the dangerous, like the version of the court artist.
Yeah. It's the war photographer, but way slower.
Way way slower. There's later, I'm jumping a bit ahead. I also love the implication from Picker and Blend that it's like a propaganda artist. And they're like, we're just joking. He's so accurate. But they're like, oh, he's painting him being heroic. Look, here he is breaking down the gates of Kabustan. And the bar guests are actually in the background. And if you look closely, Lacine is even looking over the scene. And it's like, oh, he's maybe doing like Empire propaganda. Like, here's what's happening. Let's show back home. Oh, we're so great.
But don't they also go like, psych?
They were like, just kidding. He's super accurate. But I'm like, I don't know if that's true. Ikovian doesn't look at his painting, and so we don't know what he's actually showing.
Yeah. And he evidently has done 800 paintings since Pale. He's just like, getting it done.
Ripping through them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very funny. And then we have this lovely little moment between Whiskey Jack and Ikovian. Whiskey Jack rolls up and it's like, hey, nice paintings. But also, hey, Ikovian, you and me, broing out, hardcore, gloved handshake, which is very significant. Broing out. And then walking away going, I'm never going to see that dude again. Never going to see that dude again.
Yeah, I just got a feeling.
Yeah.
I also, is this like the moment where they're talking about, so they're all getting back together into like the caravan to cross this one stretch with the help of Quick Ben. I think it's a river. Some kind of water.
Yeah, it's all muddy, right? Because
muddy,
we have that scene where Gruntle and Stani's mad about her pants getting dirty.
Yes,
we'll get to that.
Yeah. So it's all muddy, but the whole army is splitting up. Am I jumping ahead too quickly?
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
Very interesting that all of them are there. So we're on our way to Coral is like the final destination. But before that, even though they can tell that the Seerdomen have basically like, raised all these cities to the ground, so they can't get any resources. It's going to be like this drought of anything and anyone up until Coral, like where they're just putting all their eggs in that one basket. They're still splitting their armies to go scope the sitch to make sure that they don't get like flanked by hidden armies in the cities.
Well, that's what the seer thinks they're doing, because we have that. We'll get to all of this, but that's where this is one of the big questions I had for you, because there seems to be all of this ominous discussion that's left very murky for the reader as to what the real reason that they're splitting the armies is. Mm-hmm. Because everyone, very shortly from where we are talking about right now, we have that scene with Ikovian where he like susses it all out and he's like, this doesn't make any sense at all.
It seems like a fracturing of their alliance.
Yeah. And even and Picker and Blend are like, hey, Perrin tells them, the Moranth have been flying over and they verified there's nobody even in these cities. And Picker's like, why are we going? And he's like, because we're not going to the other one, which is totally a non-answer, right? Mm-hmm. Like specifically obfuscating any kind of actual truth. So there's some kind of grand machination happening with Dujek and Whiskey Jack as to why they're doing this. Mm-hmm. And the seer in that scene with the seer, they're like, why are they splitting up? He's like, they probably think we're trying to flank them. They're idiots.
Which they are in their own way.
Idiots?
No, trying to flank them. They're like, there's no way that they can scout. They've made I'm jumping too far ahead. I'll wait for that. So do you have any thoughts as to why they might be splitting off? I have like only maybe one.
Well, what's yours? I'm kind of waiting and seeing, but what do you
only
think?
One that I can think of is that they're almost, to me, rather than doing like a straight shot, they're like giving themselves the time to scope out those cities. But also, I mean, we have this whole thread of the needing like people to fanatically join the, is it Trakes? They're the wolf gods, the Barghest gods. Yeah. And they're like, we need followers. And they're like, only fanatics would be able to like join and like be followers. So maybe they need to like bide time and maybe even gather more Tenascari people to their cause.
Interesting.
Because they mentioned the Tenascari a couple times. They're definitely starving them. The Tenascari are clearly just set up to be food for the actual army who's trained. Like they're worthless to the Seerdamen and the Seer in general. As what they are, other than just starving them and making them go insane to be fanatics for themselves. So perhaps they are splitting to these different places in case there are Tenascari there that they can have to their cause, and if not, maybe biding time to like convert them. That's like the only thought I would have had.
There's some sort of passing reference to the fact that there's like these burgeoning animosity between some of the groups, and they want to split them off so they don't, they're not able to be angry with each other. There's some of that, but I think there's even something more dramatic, because in the scene with Dujek and Whiskey Jack, which we'll have to get to because they literally like lay everything out, but they're both like, oh, what we're attempting is it's gonna piss off Perrin and Quickben. Well, we might lose them, lose their and Whiskey Jack's like, no, Quickben's he's down, he's cool.
They never really say what it is though. They kind of dance around
and I think that's why I think it's this mysterious plan that we're gonna find out why it's so risky or so strange. Now it appears strange, but will make sense later, and it's kind of some strange gambit that they're trying.
Yeah, you're probably right with that. I also maybe there's also like some amount of like the new shield anvil needs to go, eat some grief.
Yeah,
like powerful.
Eat some grief.
Gotta get your grief. Like Popeye with spinach.
Start. It's part of this complete breakfast. So the next scene is Cole and Aurelio, and they are trying to find a temple to help the maybe, and all they find are empty temples because everything's been destroyed and razed. And then, before that, we hear, we get word from the people in the back that like, oh, the creepy brothers are on our tail. And then we see Corboral Broach literally attacks Cole and Murillo, smacks Murillo real hard, and then they are saved by a mysterious entity that we learn is the Knight of House Death. And I think you think what I think. I think we both think. I think we both think the same thing that we think.
Yeah, I mean, oh, baby. I don't want to say that last week I said, could Bowden be somebody? And you were like, I think he's really dead. And then immediately the payoff. Ooh, it felt so good, baby. Ooh, delicious.
You did. I got to give you mad props, because I even said last week, I think Bowden is dead. But we don't know for sure that the Knight of High House Death is Bowden, but he is trying to reckon with his memories. And he says, hey, I stood in flames trying to protect a child, and I think I failed. Which sounds a lot like Felesin.
Sounds a lot like our buddy. Yo, I'm so delighted. I was trying to remember, like, so he can't take his swords out of his hands.
Right. Which is weird, because he never fought with swords. We never saw him fight with swords, but I guess that's
did
he?
In like way earlier chapters. I thought it was Gruntle at the time, but in like a way earlier chapter in Capistan, they were like, oh yeah, we've been here fighting, but there's a guy who's just been going crazy with like these two swords. One of them actually bent around his hand, so we can't like take it out of his hand or whatever. But he's just been killing everybody.
Because I thought that was Gruntle too.
I'm sure that it's not Gruntle. I could go find I should have gone back and looked it up. But because they described him in like the robe that he's wearing when he shows up in this scene. And I remember at the time dismissing it because I was like, oh, that must be Gruntle. But it was like such an odd, almost like non sequitur of like, and also this guy's over here anyway, and then like moving out of that scene again.
Interesting.
And so I just tied it into something we already understood. But they specifically talk about him having fought so hard that he has bent his sword. And that's...
Well, this is...
I could be
going to be really disappointing if it's not Bowden, because I think we're both super excited about it. But I think all signs point to yes.
Well, there's a couple people that were on the ship, but like specifically like, okay, I stood in fire.
Yeah.
which is what he actually did, which is how he died.
Yeah.
Um,
Protecting a child. That was his whole job.
That was his whole job. But there was
Yeah.
like the other people who were on the ship who also were like in the fire, the first
Yeah.
fire.
Right.
That,
but we saw them at the end of Dead House Gates. Like they're still hanging out. They're not. He's the only one that disappeared, I think.
And he's the only one who was like, I must be impermeable to fire, and then was like, oh no, I'm dying to fire.
If he's a Knight of High House Death, if he's working for Hood, then Hood would have taken him when he quote unquote died. Mm-hmm. It all adds up. It's too good to be not true. And I think some of the other interesting stuff we learn here is that Hood, the god of death, has plans for the maybe in some way. Like wants everybody. It's weird. Corboral Broach wants the maybe. Hood wants the maybe. What's going on with that?
Yeah. And I love also, not Bowden. The knight shows up.
Yeah.
And Corporal Broach is like, he's like, oh, I'm hunting. And Corporal Broach is like, you'll never catch us alive. And like flies away like, wah, 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 wah. And they're like, you're not hunting him, are you? He's like, no, not at all. Like they just have like this ego.
That
and
idiot?
Like,
no way.
It just is like another moment of being like, who are these necromancers? Why are they here? Nobody seems to care about them except for Buke, and he's gone.
Yeah.
And so like, what's the point? It's so funny. And so like something we didn't mention last week about how like at every turn they're like, we are villains, but they never really get to do anything from like Picker just knocking them out cold. Like it's just so funny.
They're delightful. Yeah, they really are.
The darkest comedic relief from like the main story at every turn.
Totally. All right. So then we have this awesome scene with Itkovian hanging out with Gruntle, and they're kind of turning into boys too. I like their bromance. And Stani, like Stani comes up and totally like nails them and their behavior. And she's like, are you guys listening to that conversation? Like, it's too far away. She's like, just go over there. Like, why would anybody go over there? She's like, I'm going to go over there. And she goes over there and they're like, I wonder what she's hearing over there. If only there was some way for us to find out.
I'm so curious. Anyway,
we're here. Can't go over there. And then she comes back and like, hey, what did they say? She's like, I'm not telling you. And he's like, oh, cool. But like, what did they say? She's like, oh, you have to hear this. Yeah. It's so funny. I loved it.
Yeah.
And we find out more about we find out about like she got her clothes from the Trigal Trade Guild, which
I was kind of like, is the Trade Guild up for like just individual hire?
She's guess.
Like, I want this very specific leather and this very specific thing, and she like has like this outfit that's now like symbolic of basically like her vengeance kind of outfit on, which I'm like, dang, I would want to kick people for getting that money too, because if the TTG was making that run for them goods,
not cheap,
baby, not cheap.
That's not Amazon Prime. That's not
premium. That's Amazon. It's not.
That's full price shipping. Shipping and handling is not included. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
And this is also the scene that you kind of referenced earlier with Itkovian observing the thing about the Tenniscourie about how they are literally food for their own army, and that as they expand out, the core is dying off. It made me think of how a fire spreads, and the burning flames are at the edges, but everything, it uses up its own fuel as it expands.
Yeah.
That image just made the threat of the Panion Domin even more acute for me, because it just feels like this spreading pestilence, this ever expanding thing that just it's not that they're trying to take over and re-people the land with their own kind. They're literally just destroying everything as it moves and expands out. Pretty powerful image.
Yeah.
But also he's like, well, what's the deal with that? Doesn't make any sense why we would even go to these dead cities. So everybody is kind of coming to the same conclusion. Like, this plan doesn't seem to make any sense on the face of it, and yet we're still doing it.
Was it the scene with Dujek and Whiskey Jack where they also talked about how they're like, we have these grand plans, but we should not have the biggest plan. We should not have the most foresight because we are just mortals. Was that
that's when
scene as well?
that's when he talks to Dujek when they're like, we shouldn't be the ones dealing with this. Like, it's God stuff. Yeah.
We're the only humans, and we're the ones who are like creating the tactical plans for these armies. It doesn't make sense. This is not our job.
Yeah.
I mean, we're doing it, but
yeah.
I couldn't tell if that conversation and like basically all the big question marks about like what the heck are they actually doing in this, like as an alliance. It seems like to me like a unspoken question of we shouldn't be the ones doing this, which tells me they think that somebody else is making a plan as well, that they don't know what it is.
Yeah, we're about to get to it. There's a quick scene with Picker and Blend, and they're kind of musing on the fact that like we're all kind of losers. We've all lost rank, and then Perrin is one who comes in and says the Black Maranth, we're going to this. This is a dumb plan again, and yet he doesn't answer the question. But then he promotes Picker to lieutenant, and she becomes the second in command, and he tells her one job is to make sure the bridge burners stay together, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
But then we have the big scene with Whiskey Jack and Dujek. So
yes.
There is so much that is referenced, explained. This is the big scene of everything you thought you know, you didn't know, right? Everything you thought you knew, you don't know. All of the things in the first two novels, and mostly the first novel, a lot of stuff about the Battle of Pale, which we kind of thought we understood the situation of everybody. The one thing I remember you and I saying in those early episodes was like, the one thing we know is Taishran, not a good
guy.
Yeah. Which is like, this scene is like, no, not at all. That's not true at all.
Yeah. That's so funny. I thought the same thing as I was reading it. It's like he was doing the best he could, trying to protect the best people.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. The discussion is basically a lot of, the hidden agendas of different people involved. Lassine's hidden agenda, Taishran's hidden agenda, all that stuff. But also the revelation that some people just messed up. Like this notion of this was the biggest foul up in the history of the Malazan Empire, So let's step through it. Basically, first of all, Lassine is not responsible for the slaughter of Aren, which is a big deal because that's like the inciting incident of Gardens of the Moon,
It's like the inciting incident of Gardens of the Moon, and through both the books, I think what people kept being like, oh yeah, the Malazans, they're known for this thing.
Yeah. Right. And, evidently it was the Talana Mas who did that, which that's pretty rough. We don't know under whose command or why exactly. And Taishran was not, the other big, huge thing in Gardens of the Moon, the huge galvanizing force behind the bridge burners is we were betrayed. Most of the bridge burners were crushed in the tunnels, and that's why we're so pissed off, because they put us in the tunnels and the tunnels collapsed and they wiped out, most of the bridge burners, and that was a betrayal. Well, turns out that was an oopsie. That Taishran was trying to protect them.
Yeah. Wasn't it even like just a couple chapters ago where Whiskey Jack was like very introspective of like, oh, these missions, they were not there to kill the bridge burners. They were specifically there to kill me.
Well, he still thinks that, right?
Yes.
He still thinks that he has that moment at the end of this scene where he says, I thought somebody was out to kill the bridge burners, but I think they're still out to kill me. And oh my gosh, I'm starting to think Dujek knows more about that than he's let on. And I hope that's not the case, because I don't want to hate Dujek.
Yeah, which I think is so interesting to be like, because they talk about their like inverted command structure that they've like employed over the last however long to make sure that the best people were actually like on the ground in the thick of it where they needed to be versus like back at HQ, like looking at things from afar.
Right.
Which it's strange to me to like make that connection of being like, they just wanted the best people there for the job, but also like they do still want to kill me though. But I think that, right. But I think the significance of wanting, sorry, I'm like, this is like the brain latency happening. Whiskey Jack thinks that because he thinks that everybody would rally around him to make him emperor instead of Lacine.
Yeah.
That's why. So that's why he's so special versus the rest of the bridge burners. Sorry.
That's okay.
We'll work through it.
Lots of revelations here. Another one is that Tattersail was going to become master of the deck.
Yes.
And that Tayshrin was grooming Tattersail to become master of the deck. And when she died, the residual effect went to the person closest to her spiritually. So that, because she got it on with Perrin, that's the whole reason he became master of the deck, is because she had this relationship with him, and whatever the energy was
Stream.
like, well, I need somebody. She's dead. Him. He's next best thing.
Yeah, like lightning arcing to the next closest thing.
Yeah.
I like that they said, like, we're just lucky it didn't like, it wasn't some like random
sheep herder
that was like in the field where they were battling it out at the end.
Yeah.
Like the fact that it went to somebody who was not just like somebody that they knew, but a Malazan was like, oh my gosh, what an amazing serendipitous thing for us to have happened.
Yeah. I also like the notion that, like, Kalam went off to to this massive mission to murder the Empress. Meanwhile, literally everyone who sent him there, Quick Ben, everybody else, knew that that's not what he was really supposed to do, knew that she was on their side still. Mm-hmm. But they're like, he needs to figure it out himself in person. So he goes, everything we saw in Dead House Gates, where he's like riding through the desert, fighting people, almost dying, getting to the city, washing up on shore, getting stabbed,
killing
thrown
every
overboard.
other assassin.
Yeah, he has to murder everyone on his way, climbing up this impossible thing. His girlfriend almost dies. She saves him at the end. It's all just like, because you needed to hear it yourself. Like, we couldn't just tell you.
You wouldn't have believed us.
It's like, he's like, okay, I got it. Oh man, I can't believe I figured that all out. It's like, no, everybody else knew that. He's like, what?
Yeah, welcome to the club, buddy. We're so happy to have you with us. And I guess your 1,000 children? Still waiting for that to come back around.
Still waiting for that. Yeah. Not the best communicators, I would say, Whiskey Jack and Dewjack.
Everybody got main character energy, They're like, I have to do it. This is my right. This is my time.
Yeah. So evidently the one thing that nobody saw coming, Lacine and everybody, was that the elder gods would get involved. They knew gods would get involved, but not elder gods.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't know that Night Chill was actually the sister of Cold Nights, the elder god.
Mm-hmm. And
so that was really the key error here, is that nobody realized that. And then a Cronus, a Caronis, was suspicious that was actually happening and came to Tayshrin, and then Night Chill killed him. And so Tayshrin's like, well, now I got to kill Night Chill.
Mm-hmm.
So all of these like misunderstandings is what led to where we are today, which is such an interesting explanation, I thought.
Yeah, like a cascade of errors in like the critical pin of their
and
plans.
Bellerdan is the one who everybody's like, well, that's the biggest mistake, because Bellerdan is the only one that was clueless about everything.
Yeah.
And really messed it all up by trying
to kill Tattersail, or successfully killing Tattersail.
Yeah. And then the funniest
if he
part
had
of all,
known, like, that is like so interesting to think about. Like, if he had known, like, oh, Tattersail is special, Night Chill be bad, Tattersail would have been like, anyway, catch you later. And like,
well, Tattersail would be the master of the deck now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not the reborn Talana Moss of flesh and bone,
like
Bonecaster.
Angst problems from 3 different people.
Yeah. And maybe she and Perrin would still be
together. But there is a sweet love story
There is a sweet
in this
love story.
chapter.
I want to say one last thing about the scene because I think the funniest thing at the end of this was that Dujek is like, oh, BT dubs. Taishrin has been wanting to apologize to you guys for so long. It's like
well, why
literally
he?
the
Why
one
hasn't
character
he told me that himself?
The one character from the first book were like, we don't know anybody's allegiances, but the one thing you and I know, Lana, is that Taishrin's bad. And he's like, by the way, he wants to apologize to everybody.
I think often about like what it was about us starting this series that made, other than people's just like love for the series in general, but like about our conversation that would have like people would have hooked onto, being like, okay, I want to see where these two go. Like
how wrong we were.
It's like that we had that. So it was like our first episode. I think they're like, the one thing we know is Taishrin's bad. And I feel like there's like listeners here who've just been waiting for us to get here and be like, I guess we know nothing, huh? Know nothing? Great.
Okay, then yes, we get to the lovely little romance, Whiskey Jack and Corlat.
Oh,
it's so awesome. I loved the. I don't know if it's right here. It might be later where Corlat is musing about like how like I just can't stop thinking about him.
I know.
Like I'm supposed to be worrying about war, but like
I'm supposed to be thinking about like the unimaginable horrors that we're gonna face and how we're gonna like defeat them. But like.
But he looks so cute in the armor.
Me? Is he like looking up at the same stars I am? Do you think?
It's adorable. Adorable. All right. So then we get another major connection point to the other books because we get Quick Ben literally hiring the Trade Guild, the TTG, to send the stuff to Fiddler that we see Fiddler receive in Deadhouse Gates. So this is a huge overlap point. Like when that, when the wagons come out of the Warrens. Here it is.
It's like a nice little tee up.
Yeah.
So one of my questions that's like trying to remember back to Deadhouse Gates. Fiddler asked for Quick Ben's help at some point. Is this what made him send the TTG? Because I think Fiddler was somewhere else, right? There's like another time that I keep waiting for Quick Ben to be like in distress.
Yeah. I don't remember if this happened. I think there's another time later where he contacts.
Smashes his little.
Yeah. I think that happens later after this.
Okay.
Yeah. But we find out, this is the moment where that gets sent and we already saw it received. We also get Krupp showing up and being like, hey, I want to help. Smash, here's Baruch's demon that I've been carrying around. And the demon says some really interesting things that we already know about from novel 2. He mentions Icarium by name and Azath and Coltane. So I thought that was interesting.
So I thought that it was like a demon as well because we've seen like glass vials smash, demon come out. But for some reason, I imagined that scene as him actually communicating with the little familiar.
Oh, you're right.
Over there.
It's not a demon. It's a Bruckerall. Yeah.
Bruckerall, yeah.
Yeah, those little demon-y dudes. You're right. You're absolutely right.
So it's not like a demon that's just like, here's information that I have. I thought it was like an actual communion with the Bruckerall that's like hanging out with Fiddler the whole time.
You're 100% right, as usual. Yes. Thank you for correcting me. Yes, I did the assumption of the smashing the thing and the demon comes out. But no, it literally is the Bruckerall, the little guys.
Yeah.
That Baruch we know has as a pet, as a familiar.
Yeah. That was hanging out with Crocus. Because Crocus is the nephew.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Right. All right, and then we have this moment where Velbara comes up, who's the new destriant, and is talking about Anaster, who is riding with the group and now that wants to take the pain away. And we have this really interesting moment where she's telling Perrin about what she wants to do, like embrace him and take his pain away. And he's like, well, he's not gonna, be an empty husk of a person because that's all he has is pain. She's like, well, but I want to do it. And he's like, okay. I give you my blessing. She's
like,
he said the magic word. You're the one who blesses. And something crazy happens because he's the master of the deck, and she's like, maybe not use that word
Well, I thought it was
willy-nilly.
so interesting that she knew that that was like what caused it, because I thought that was almost like a private moment that he knew that he had to give his blessing. I didn't know that that was like, oh, everybody knows, like, he's just got to give the blessing. Bless it up, bro. And he's
Yeah.
like, I don't know how to do that. And he's like, do I just say it? Yes, apparently. Definitely.
Yeah. But very cool. I thought a way to show that like you can't just bless things willy-nilly, dude. You gotta think about your blessings. Like if someone sneezes,
You can't
just let it go.
Just let it ride.
Maybe you can say Gesundheit, maybe.
Yeah.
just to be safe, just if they sneeze, just walk away. Walk away.
It was so interesting reading that scene. I love like that reveal, because I didn't think anything of it when he said it, and she like, oh, like a weight fell upon her.
Yeah.
And I was like, ambush. And I was like, oh no, that's just our first glimpse into like the power that he has now as the master of the deck. Love it.
All right. Chapter 22, we start in Coral with our boy, Talk the Younger.
Oh.
I just got to shake my head every time I see Talk, because it's just things are bad and things are worse. And like hanging out with the Seer Dome, like just listening, just being like,
can't even breathe. Just a crumpled, like shapeless, non-human. And it's just so sad. He had such like a strong personality. Like I loved reading his chapters, and now he's like, I don't know who I am. I'm a wolf. I used to be, I guess, Talk the Younger. I don't remember who that is anymore.
Yeah.
Heartbreaking.
I love it. And a lot of the point of the scene, I think, is him overhearing the discussion between the Seer Domin and the Seer and the Septarch, Septarch Ultentha, which is a cool name. And I love the characterization of the Seer, who is this like uber bad, very powerful being, and is just a petulant child.
Just
so
a
funny.
Big baby.
I will do what I want.
You think I don't know that? I know that. I'm the Seer, actually. I saw it.
It's what Seer means. Yeah. Look it up.
He's so childlike. And even the whole time he being like, mother, mommy. Like
I
literally
will get
like
what I want, and both of you will shut up. At the beginning of the scene, he's like, oh, I don't like what you said. Hey, Septarch, what do you think? Oh, you agree? Yeah. Both of you suck. It's like it's just very funny stuff.
And which one of them? Somebody is like, you can't give Talk back to your mom, bro.
Oh yeah, this lovely little thing with the Seer Domin showing compassion for Talk was like, the dinosaur mom is killing it. Look at its little bones. Look, they're all broken and not
all his fluff's coming out.
Not, you're squeezing too tight. It's squeezing too tight. If you give her back, we're not gonna have it anymore. It's and she's like, I will do what I want. I'll do what I want. But I thought that was lovely, and that there's even in this very evil organization, there's this like bit of compassion of the he's like, hey man, I tried to prevent you from getting squeezed all the day long, but sorry.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And interesting stuff about how the vultures, his winged ones, have been keeping the great ravens away, and that the queen of disease is like helping them. And yes, the peasants will die of the pestilence, but all of the soldiers will be protected because the Seer has some sort of arrangement with the queen of the god of pestilence and disease.
And this is where they mention that they're like, oh, they're going to those cities because they think we're flanking them. And we are, but not from the cities. They dug a bunch of trenches, I guess, that keeping the Marantha away and keeping the crone and her ravens away makes it so they can't see that they've dug these trenches that they're going to spring out of when the time is right.
Yeah. And that little, like I said, that little compassion stuff with the Seer Domin is lovely, where he Talk is like, don't do anything for me because you will be devoured. And the Seer Domin's like, I'm already devoured. I'm lost. And he's like, hey, is it windy and cold? He's like, oh yeah, man, the wind sucks. And Talk's like, I remember wind. There's no wind in the mother's embrace.
Yeah, there's no wind there, baby. Ugh.
Yeah. Bad news for Talk as usual. Then we cut over to where Talk could be right now if he had made better choices.
Mm-hmm.
And that is Lady Envy on the iceberg, talking with Lanas Tog, the Talana Moss.
Mm-hmm.
And basically it's just like, I need a friend to talk to. And nobody wants to hang out with Lady Envy. Talk would
She's
literally
lonely.
rather experience the worst torment a human can than just have another conversation with Lady Envy.
And Lady Envy being like, yeah, it took Tool a while to get conversational as well. And she's like, Tool? She's like, your friend. She's like, oh, Unus Tulan? Right. Okay. Sure. What do you want? Like, the indifference to the traveling companion is very funny.
Yeah. I also like that there's a moment where she's like, nobody makes jokes. And then Lannis makes a joke and she's like, oh, you made a joke.
But she doesn't get it till later, doesn't she? Like, ugh, like
she
walks away and goes, hey, wait a second.
You
Got him. Nice.
Yeah, really
nice.
Good. All right. Then we have the scene where Corlat is thinking about Whiskey Jack. She just can't pay attention to Caladan Brood and Calor and everybody talking about interesting stuff because she's just so in love, which I love. Crone is like, we can't even find Moonspawn. We don't know where Animander is. He took 2/3 of all of the Tisti and we're screwed. I have a feeling Rake has got some good stuff going that we're going to find out about later.
I like through that conversation, Corlat's like not listening. And they're like, took 2/3 of the Tisti and we don't know. And she's like, they are alive.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay. And she's like, I hope.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But that's like the first time I've ever like even heard the hint that they might just all be gone. I don't think that they are, but it is interesting that that's like thrown in there, being like, maybe they're all dead somewhere.
Right. Yeah. Well, we haven't been able to find him. Well, even in that seer scene, the seer is like, we don't. My vultures have been looking for the for Moonspawn as well, and maybe it just exploded. I don't know, but I think everybody is going to be wrong about that. Mm-hmm. All right. So then we have a scene with we're back with Colin Murillo. And this is the weird sort of like, oh, I thought this was a good thing that the Night of Death saved them and brought them to a temple, but maybe not, because he's preparing the room for the maybe, but then he brings a sarcophagus, right?
He's preparing the room for the maybe, but I don't know if he brought it. It read to me like he like dug it out of the floor or like had like created it somehow. And they were like, she is not dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that I didn't really know what to make of that scene other than I'm kind of like, well, he's the Night of Death. It makes sense that whatever he would try to be doing would be seen through that lens.
Right.
But I'm not sure.
It does feel like everybody has designs on the maybe, including Hood, and this might be the way Hood is trying to use the maybe. But very quickly the scene like veers from that into Cole and Murillo having this really interesting conversation about Cole is like remembering his drunken days from Gardens of the Moon and his relationship with Lady Simtal, which Murillo, avenged in Gardens of the Moon. That was a whole big plot there. And he's like, wait a second, do I have a kid? And he's like, Murillo, do I have a kid? And he's like, no.
No with a question mark. Oh, you want to know if I think you do? Yeah, I think
I definitely think you do, but you probably shouldn't.
Neither here nor there.
And then he's like, what are you going to do? Just like swoop into its life? And he's like, yeah, I am. I'm going to take it and it's mine, my kid. He's like, whatever family it's with, just leave it alone. He's like, well, maybe I could be
A patron.
Invisible benefactor.
Yes, invisible benefactor.
But interesting. I think these two chapters very much more than any other, I think, that we've read, tie back to the other books. And we're getting these connection bits, you know.
I definitely reread the name Simtal like 12 times before I was like, who the heck was Simtal? And I was like, oh, right. Like his ex.
Yeah. The evil lady that gets murdered late at the end of Gardens of the Moon. But I wonder, you know, what the ramifications of him having a kid are, because the kid's only 3. So it's not like the kid is a character that we, you know, it's going to be a big reveal. The kid's going to be 3 years old. But I feel like there's something there also.
I feel like there's something there, if only because Cole and Perrin spent so much time together, right?
Yeah.
Like Cole was like bleeding out and Perrin was like, okay, I'll ride you back into the city. And they spend a lot of time together. And so maybe there's like a connection through, like, I'm just trying to think of any other time we like saw Cole hanging out with anybody.
Right.
But basically the entire book, he's like, okay, we'll go out to find the obelisk or whatever. But every other time he's referred to like, oh yeah, drunk guy. Oh, he's wasted. Oh, he's so heartbroken. His ex is sleeping with every other like governor or whatever.
Yeah.
All of the politicians in the city. Sucks to be that guy. That was like my whole memory of Cole, other than when he like gets his leg stabbed through and he's like, well, now I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah. We have that awesome thing where Perrin and he have that campfire discussion about being soldiers. And yeah, that you're right. That was cool.
Yeah. So that's like the only way, because I'm like, Simtal was nobody as far as I could tell. But maybe that's like the only connection to like why this kid would matter.
I skipped over a really fun moment that we should touch on, which is the moment where Emancipor Reese comes out with his head all wrapped and he's got a cloth bandage, and Beauchelane is like, oh, I just thought he had found a new fashion. Head wraps were like the new thing. It's so funny how they're like these uber powerful necromancers, but just also clueless and bumbling in fun ways.
So out of it at every possible turn. Was he got like hit? Why did
well, he keeps breaking his teeth by eating olives.
Oh yeah.
He bites them.
Is that true? I feel like I couldn't tell whether or not that was really the case. There's part of me that was like, they were like, oh yeah, get yourself together, Reese. Stop with the olives. And part of me was like, oh, that's what they're saying, because behind the scenes they're like taking his teeth for doing things because they can't get other bodies. It seemed like a weird, like, I didn't even notice.
I know. I had that same feeling, but by the end of it, I kind of felt like he really was just breaking his teeth eating olive pits. But it's funny when he shows up, he's like, it's the olive pits.
Oh yeah.
It's the olives. And they're like, and Kovian's like, oh, I'm going to do you a solid, man. Hey, why don't you use some of your awesome skills at fixing things and do surgery on your servant? And he's like, no more Sicily. And Bushlane's like, sure, absolutely. Yeah, we're definitely going to give you another surgery. You want one, right? No, I don't. He does. He definitely does.
Yeah.
Very funny.
It's just so funny that it's like phonetically typed out so that you know.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, like lisping and in pain. He said like these words. It's like everything starts with the TH because he's so messed up. Yeah. It's good.
So good. And then the final scene of the chapter is the maybe in another sort of dreamlike state. I don't know what to make of this one, because it says her ribs became legs and the skin became webs. Is she turning into a spider?
But then it was like, and then she like slid.
Yeah, she slid.
And I'm like, that doesn't make sense for like webs.
The dust became glass and she slides. So I don't know what's going on with her, but something. I don't know if this is connected to her being in the Temple of Hood, or, you know, being dealt with by the Night of Death, or if this is her own journey. She's still involved with the wolves in some way. I don't know what to make of that last
It
sentence.
says the dust became glass.
I think so, yeah.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't connect this, but at the start of chapter 22, they have that tales to scare children from Malazan the Vindictive.
Which is so cool, by the way, that little rhyme.
Yeah, well, it starts with glass is sand, and sand is glass. The ant dancing blind as blind ants do on the lip of the rim and the rim of the lip. White in the night and gray in the day, smiling spider. She never smiles, but smile she does. Though the ant never sees, blind as it is.
Smiling
and now
spider.
was. So, yeah, maybe you're right.
Interesting. You know, I've often heard, and I think you have too, the notion that a lot of what is going to happen in the chapter is kind of subtly hinted at in the little blurbs. At the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go. Good connection. Good connection. Interesting chapters. I mean, like I said at the beginning, not the fireworks that we've had of late with, big, huge things. These are more like everything's kind of percolating and we're getting juicy information of connection points and what we thought was true isn't true stuff, which I thought was very juicy, but
setting up another sort of series of mysteries of questions. Not that there's ever oh great, and all those questions were answered,
right.
But definitely opening the doors to what the rest of the book will be about. Yeah. One thing that we didn't touch on that I thought was very impactful to me, I forget which conversation it is. Somebody's like, do you think everybody knows that the army that we faced at Capistan was one of three armies?
Yeah, the same size. Each army is equally as massive. Size. Yeah.
And while that Seardomen was particularly effective, there's still 6 more that are at least equally-ish as talented as a commander.
Septarchs. Yeah.
The Septarch, yeah.
Yeah.
So do you think everybody knows that? And I was like, gross.
Yeah. I know,
oh right? No. So
we seem to be definitely leading up to another major clash in Coral because the seer is there, talks there. We know that everybody's kind of and the seer in that scene was talking about, digging trenches and preparing. And there's even that one moment where in that scene with Corlat and Calor, where they're they're in Coral preparing. And Calor's like, duh. Yes, obviously they're preparing. So there's going to be a major clash there. But we also heard the description that Dujek wants the clash to be quick and decisive. Like we're going to go all in one big moment. And it's not going to be this extended campaign of war.
Yeah, but who knows what he's saying
right.
for the sake of everybody versus what the reality is like.
Yeah. I'm very curious as to the reasoning behind the splitting of the armies. If we get and what this whole thing of we might lose Perrin and Quickbin because they're being sent ahead, right? The bridge burners and Perrin are being sent ahead, and what that gambit is all about, what that tactic is exactly.
Yeah. And just what are we going to find in these cities as we split our forces? If everybody's it doesn't make sense, when are we going to get a glimpse as to the purpose of even doing this, especially if the goal is to go in as one big dump of forces? Why bother splitting it all into these cities that have been razed to the ground?
Interesting stuff. And the fact that we only really have 3 chapters left in this book is wild to me. 2 chapters next week. I think they're pretty lengthy. And then the chapter 25 is the biggest one in the whole book. I mistakenly said 18 was. 25 is evidently the biggest chapter in the whole book. So we'll be doing that with the epilogue in week after next. Very exciting to get to the end of this novel. It's been so much fun. We are always looking for your recommendations for other books, your topics for non-spoiler stuff at the beginning. Please send those to us. You can email us at dlcfeedback@gmail.com or post them in our Discord, which is 5x5 DLC on Discord. Great folks hanging out, talking about the books. We have sections for each of the novels in the book club section of our Discord, the thread. And, really fun people hanging out. In fact, I want to highlight something really cool that happened in the Discord this week. Our friend Axtimus Prime posted some original artwork that they made that really blew my mind. Check it out. It's Animander Rake. This is inspired from the first novel, from Gardens of the Moon. Animander Rake and Dragnapur, the sword coming out of its scabbard on his back as he stands in front of Moonspawn. I love this artwork. Lana. I don't know where that came from.
Lanamander Rake is my new.
Lana, yeah, there you go. Lanamander Rake. That's your new book club name. Lanamander Rake. What you are an artist. You hire artists. Pretty awesome art here, right?
Oh, incredible! I love like drawing the eye with like the super high contrast of the darkness of the blade. Really feels very sinister, and like so many small details. Like I want to blow it up. Like the line work through like the sort of the quilting of the scabbard versus his actual cloth draping, like the leather gauntlet of it, like part of his gauntlets, and to the city in the background. Like really amazing stuff. Yeah, great work.
Yeah. So thank you for posting that, Aximus Prime. And we have some quotes that we love. We always talk about our favorite sentences from the week's reading. And Lana, do you have a quote that you want to mention?
I do. I have a couple. One of them, I'll start here because I think there's like a couple that I always think I'm like, oh, that's the common one. So I want ones that are maybe not a common one.
Love it.
So this is coming when we just meet the knight, basically, and it's Cole talking with who we think is Bowden. The dead, it is said, do not sleep. Cole well knew the saying and knew that it had originally come from Hood's own temple. He knew as well the wry observation that closed the quote, while the living do not live. Not that that makes much sense. It does to me, the warrior said, for now I know that I have lost what I did not know I once possessed.
Oh, so good. So good. I've lost.
I mean, I gotta pull from Bowden. Love that guy.
Yeah. Your boy.
Woo!
Your boy.
My boy.
I also have a Cole quote. This is Cole does some musing about what it was like when he was a drunk, basically. And he says, every meal since had tasted wine-soaked, reminding Cole of the almost 2 years he had wasted as a drunk, drowning in misery's dark waters as only a man in love with self-pity can. He would have liked to call the man he had been a stranger now, but the world had a way of spinning unnoticed until what he'd thought he'd turned his back on suddenly faced him again. That is good, dude. Come on. That is good.
I love it.
I'm sorry. There's one more sentence I want to read.
Oh, yeah.
Even worse, introspection, for him at least, was a funnel in sand, a spider waiting at the bottom. That's good.
And spider sand motif. Spider sand
motif. Yeah. You got another one?
I do have one more. It's very brief, highlighting moments of positivity throughout this book. It is Corlat to Whiskey Jack as they meet. If there is to be a conversation, keep it short, please. What I desire is not answered by words.
So good. So funny. You picked a Cole. I picked a Cole. You picked a Corlat. I picked a Corlat.
Oh!
I like this. This is lovely. Corlat's attention drifted once more. It had been doing a lot of that of late. She'd forgotten what love could do as it threaded its roots through her entire soul, as it tugged and pulled at her thoughts, obsession ripening like seductive fruit. She felt only its life thickening within her, claiming all she was. What a wonderful way to describe obsession.
It's so beautiful. Great quotes.
Beautiful.
Great quotes.
Beautiful
There's
stuff.
Also, I should have pulled it before this thing. There's somebody who's been commenting every week. I'm not, because it's your YouTube owner. I don't know if people know. I reply to the comments sometimes. I am Latai in the comments. But somebody always posts their favorite sentence from
I love that. Yes.
the book. Keep it coming. I love to see what resonates with all of you as well. So
Agreed. It's such a
very, very
wonderful
fun.
thing. I noticed that as well. I'm glad you noted it because it's been fun seeing other folks' favorite passages. Keep them coming. We love it. The comments are very much appreciated. The interaction on the Discord, very much appreciated. And again, your recommendations, your topics for the beginning of the show, very much welcome. dlcfeedback@gmail.com. All right.
Do we want to tease any of our other upcoming things that are in the works, or should we wait until we have solid plans?
What upcoming things do we have? Oh, you mean like
2 other shows that we're going to go?
Yeah, I mean, maybe we should tease when we know dates to say.
Okay, well,
but we have friends. We've made friends, and we're going to be collabing with some friends. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about that. Yes.
Yeah.
But we stay tuned. Watch this space, and we will tell you other spaces to watch. All right. Very fun week. We'll dance it out and see you next time for 2 more chapters.
When the world's too dark of a place to be, and you need an escape from reality, open up those pages, it's sci-fi or fantasy, whatever genre you please. And join a book club, 'cause you won't read it on your own. Join a book club, so you'll be held accountable. It's just a means to an end, but you're doing